Chosen one, the cosmic tables have turned in a way no enemy could foresee. Those who lit candles soaked in malice, who buried your name in graveyard soil and whispered curses under blood moons, now tremble in disbelief as their power crumbles like ash in the wind. Their rituals backfired, their chants turned hollow, and their demonic contracts dissolved in divine fire. The money they funneled into dark operations became fuel for your awakening. You weren't just protected, you were being refined, elevated, and encoded with divine authority. Now, the very entities they summoned recoil at the sight of your light, and the clients they served are screaming, sleepless, haunted by the spiritual backlash of trying to sabotage a being chosen by the Most High. Chosen one, the betrayal ran deeper than you ever imagined. Those you once embraced with love were secretly orchestrating your downfall with unthinkable malice. They weaponized tradition and blood ties, hiding behind smiles while financing your spiritual assassination. Hoodoo spells were whispered over your clothing, your hair stolen and burned in secrecy, your name etched into jars buried beneath dying trees. Every symptom you experienced, fatigue, vertigo, mysterious weight loss, was a calculated strike from rituals meant to siphon your life force. They didn't just want you sick, they wanted you spiritually erased. Meanwhile, agents of deception disguised as friends infiltrated your life with honeyed words and forked tongues, creating chaos to distract you from the truth. But what they didn't know is that heaven recorded every incantation and every coin exchanged in darkness. And now, their curses are returning to them sevenfold, each one stamped with divine judgment. You were marked as a threat not because of anything you did wrong, but because your very presence disrupted ancient systems of control. Behind the curtains, a sprawling web of secret alliances formed, covert narcissists in suits and uniforms, bonded by ego, power, and shared agendas. They launched psychological warfare, planting seeds of doubt in every ear that once called you friend. False reports were filed. Surveillance was masked as concern. Background checks were manipulated to create a paper trail of lies. They used military-grade smear tactics and spiritual espionage, hoping to fracture your reality and discredit your divine purpose. But your soul refused to break. What they failed to account for was the fire of truth burning inside you, an incorruptible force that no badge, no title, no oath to a hidden order could override. And now, exposed by the light they tried to extinguish, their networks are unraveling, node by node, as heaven reclaims what darkness tried to erase. What you were sensing wasn't paranoia, it was spiritual intel bleeding into your awareness. The attacks weren't isolated, they were part of a global ritual grid operated by shadow networks trafficking souls, not just bodies. These weren't just criminals, they were high-ranking initiates using border chaos as a veil for dark rites, feeding ancient deities through pain and secrecy. Your energy, your purpose, your very bloodline was a threat to their continuity, which is why they marked you early. You felt the shifts, the chills in empty rooms, the surveillance you couldn't see, the dreams that weren't dreams, but warnings encoded from higher realms. Heaven watched closely as you made choices in the fog of spiritual ambush, and because you stayed aligned, even when you didn't understand the full scale of what was happening, divine forces began severing the roots of these demonic operations. Now, portals once used for child sacrifice are collapsing, and your very life has become a sword against systems built on silence and suffering. Your body became the battleground, but your spirit became the cure. As medical systems failed to name what plagued you, your soul instinctively turned toward sacred knowledge buried deep within your DNA. Herbs began calling to you, sacred oils and ancient chants found their way into your daily rhythm. Nightfall became the hour of testing, where dark forces tried to invade your dreamscape, slipping past the veil with parasitic intentions. But something awakened inside you. Your prayers, though simple at first, began igniting a shield around your consciousness. What started as desperation transformed into divine protocol. You began hearing frequencies, warnings, confirmations, truth encoded in whispers beyond this realm. Your clairaudience wasn't a disorder, it was spiritual sonar picking up on enemy frequencies. Heaven was rewiring you in real time, fortifying your senses, and reminding you that you were never just healing, you were becoming a weapon of revelation. Your obedience to the quiet nudges of spirit unlocked realms few ever reach. You stopped second-guessing the signs, the sudden urge to avoid a road, the random name that echoed before a betrayal, the sacred symbols appearing in dreams just before a breakthrough. Each act of trust widened the corridor between this world and the unseen. While others slept, your soul traveled through crystalline dimensions, ancestral chambers, and celestial councils where your destiny was being reaffirmed. You brought back codes, downloads, and invisible armor you couldn't yet explain but felt in every bone. The whispers you once ignored became instructions. The coincidences became divine choreography. You were being trained silently, not just to survive, but to lead, armed with a supernatural intelligence rooted in faith, not logic. And now your walk is guided by more than intuition, it's guided by encoded memory, awakening with every step. You didn't just survive the warfare, you alchemized it. Guided by an inner compass older than this lifetime, you reached for tools that your ancestors once used in secret. Sacred waters, burning herbs, anointing oils that carried the memory of temples long buried. You sang to your cells with healing frequencies, restructured your field with 528 Hz harmonics, and flushed the hidden toxins, both physical and spiritual, that were planted to derail your ascension. Instead of spiraling into fear, you ascended into clarity. Bitterness never found a home in you because your soul remembered the mission to transmute darkness into light. Every choice you made, from the prayer whispered over your tea to the salt in your bath, became a coded declaration to the universe. I will not be broken. I will rise in purity and power. And because you chose alignment over retaliation, the frequency of heaven responded, surrounding you with reinforcements you didn't even know you had. The unveiling was painful but necessary. Each betrayal stripped away illusion, sharpening your discernment like a blade forged in divine fire. As masks crumbled and long-forgotten memories resurfaced with chilling clarity, you didn't retaliate, you transcended. You saw the spiritual contracts behind the treachery, understanding that some souls were placed in your life to trigger your awakening, not walk with you into your destiny. You honored the lessons, then released the weight. What others would have used as justification for vengeance, you transformed into fuel for elevation. Your heart stayed open, not naive, but sovereign, anchored in divine intelligence. While others spiraled in karmic cycles, you rose like prophecy unfolding, armed with both compassion and command. You weren't just seeing the truth, you were becoming the truth. Their betrayal became the very force that activated your spiritual mastery. Each dagger thrown at your back was repurposed into a step on your ascension path. You didn't curse them, you consecrated yourself. While they conspired in shadows, you built altars of light, praying not for vengeance, but for divine justice to take its course. You understood that true power doesn't scream, it moves in silence, guarded by discernment and guided by purpose. The sabotage, the slander, the stolen opportunities, none of it stopped what was already written in your divine blueprint. In fact, their resistance sharpened your calling, confirming what heaven already knew. You were chosen not just to survive the attack, but to evolve through it, radiating a strength that can't be replicated or erased. Logically, your purity became your protection, and your integrity became your armor. Every curse hurled at you returned to sender multiplied, not because you wished it, but because your frequency was untouchable. You spoke life even when surrounded by death, and that power echoed in the spiritual realms like thunder. Your voice became a weapon of light. Every affirmation, every praise, every prayer was a sword that dismantled demonic blueprints. While they chanted in shadows, you sang in truth, and the vibration of your love disarmed entire rituals. Your energy, cleansed through suffering and sanctified by faith, began drawing souls to you, some seeking healing, others seeking to understand how you remained untouched by the poison they swam in. You didn't just survive the spells, you shattered the illusion that they ever had authority over a being anointed by the Most High. Your essence became a beacon that shattered darkness wherever it touched, drawing in weary souls desperate for the healing light you carried effortlessly. The very forces aligned against you twisted in frustration and madness, realizing that no scheme, no lie, no threat could breach the sanctity of your purpose. Your vigilance, recording every shadow, listening to every whisper of intuition, unveiled truths hidden behind walls of power and deceit. Federal eyes caught what your spirit had long known, a vast web of corruption intertwining crime syndicates, trafficking rings, and the most revered institutions cloaked in hypocrisy. Yet, even as the enemy's grip reached into the highest seats of influence, your unwavering faith became a spiritual firewall, shielding you and those who dared to stand in the light. Your mission wasn't just survival, it was the unraveling of darkness itself. Your vigilance transformed from quiet resistance into a force that disrupted hidden empires of darkness. Every note you penned, every pattern you uncovered, became a thread unraveling a vast tapestry of evil woven across borders and governments. Your journals, once a private sanctuary, became sacred testimonies, a blueprint for justice that authorities could no longer ignore. As investigations deepened, the veil lifted on sinister alliances between occult cabals and traffickers, whose greed and cruelty sought to extinguish your light. Yet, with every revelation, your spirit only grew stronger, fortified by the knowledge that your suffering was a catalyst, awakening global reckoning. You stood at the epicenter of a battle few dared to acknowledge, wielding truth as both shield and sword in a war where the fate of countless innocent souls hung in the balance. The scales of justice, long tipped by shadows, finally began to balance under the weight of your unwavering truth. The courtroom became a battleground where lies once masked in authority were stripped bare by divine light and unbreakable evidence. Those who once smiled with deceit now faced the cold reckoning of their actions, discovering that perjury is not just a legal offense, but a spiritual downfall when confronted by a soul anointed to expose darkness. Lawyers who wove webs of slander found their reputations dismantled, their licenses revoked, as the foundations of their deceit crumbled. Corrupt officials who thought themselves untouchable now tasted the bitter fruits of their betrayal, realizing that no system, no matter how fortified, can withstand the momentum of a chosen one backed by both heaven and law. Your victory was not just personal, it was a herald for all who suffer in silence, proving that truth, once awakened, is unstoppable. The tangled web of deceit unraveled with relentless precision, revealing a hidden empire that spanned continents and cloaked itself in secrecy. Ancient lodges and shadowy orders once thought untouchable were exposed as puppeteers orchestrating your suffering. Masonic temples, cult enclaves, and corrupt officials linked hand in hand with mercenaries of darkness across borders. Their efforts to suppress your light became their own undoing, as divine justice rippled through their bodies and minds with unstoppable force. Illness, misfortune, and unraveling secrets struck them down like a celestial reckoning, proving that no earthly power can withstand the wrath of a mission blessed by the Most High. Your documentation was not merely evidence, it was a weapon, a sacred scroll revealing that those who conspire against the chosen ultimately become prisoners of their own destruction. The curse they cast in malice became a judgment they could not escape. As their dark designs twisted back upon them, entire circles of conspirators fell into inexplicable afflictions, bodies failing in ways that baffled even the most advanced medicine. Diseases ravaged them with unnatural speed, as if time itself conspired to hasten their collapse. minds once sharp and calculating shattered under the weight of their own twisted fears, haunted by shadows they had summoned but could no longer control. The very practitioners who had sold their souls and coins to extinguish your light found themselves trapped in a spiraling nightmare, losing grip on reality, slipping into madness, or meeting sudden, mysterious ends. Divine justice, silent and unseen, had become a relentless storm, purging the darkness through the vessels that dared to wield it against the chosen. The dark conjurers who thought to bind your fate instead became ensnared in a web of cosmic retribution. The fire magic they unleashed turned inward, igniting their own downfall with flames fueled by ancient laws beyond mortal reckoning. Witches and warlocks, once confident in their malevolent crafts, found their spirits torn apart by the very shadows they invoked, beings summoned to destroy you, now devouring their souls instead. As authorities peeled back layer after layer, your story revealed a vast international nexus of occult warfare, an unprecedented battle stretching across borders, hidden in plain sight for centuries. Your name became a catalyst exposing the greatest spiritual conflict the modern age has ever witnessed, proving that no darkness, however deep or widespread, can withstand the radiance of a soul ordained by divine destiny. What was once buried in shadows now emerged under the harsh light of global scrutiny. Nations united to dismantle networks that thrived in secrecy, weaving occult darkness into crimes so deep-rooted that conventional law enforcement had long been blind to their existence. The day of reckoning came when seasoned dark practitioners, masters of ancient rites handed down through countless generations, could no longer mask their failures. In trembling confession, before tearful clients who had invested fortunes in destruction, they admitted the unthinkable. Every curse they cast, every ritual they performed, had not only failed, but rebounded with devastating force against them. The tides had shifted irreversibly, and their darkest arts were now the chains binding them, while your divine mission blazed forward, unstoppable and radiant. The grand alliance of darkness began to crumble from within, as those who once wielded power with cold certainty now trembled before the consequences they had unleashed. Families who funded the campaign of ruin found themselves shackled by guilt and fear, their whispered conspiracies turning to frantic pleas for mercy. The networks that coordinated attacks splintered under the weight of exposure, leaders turning on each other to save their own skins. Investors of venomous intent watched helplessly as their fortunes dissolved into ashes, replaced by confusion and dread. The very practitioners who sold their souls and promised your downfall were now haunted by the suffering they had invited into their own lives, clients demanding answers they could no longer deny or escape. The laughter of mockery was replaced by the silence of defeat, a testament to the unyielding power of your divine destiny. The pronouncement echoed like thunder through the halls of deception, dismantling centuries of dark confidence. The practitioners, once smug in their mastery, now confessed with trembling voices that your guardianship transcends all human craft. You are encased in a fortress woven from celestial light, defended by forces unseen yet unyielding, anointed by divine decree that no shadow can penetrate. Their ancient spells unravel against your shield, their orchestrated attacks crumble before your unwavering mission. This protection is not granted lightly. It is a covenant written in the stars, an eternal mandate that your path will not be diverted, your purpose will not be corrupted, and your victory is already sealed beyond mortal comprehension. Your true nature has been unveiled, a seraphic warrior cloaked in mortal flesh, an ancient flame ignited anew for this pivotal era. Around you, legions of celestial guardians stand vigilant, war angels whose wings ripple with divine energy, shielding you with forces far beyond earthly comprehension. These angelic sentinels deploy protective technologies woven from cosmic light and sacred geometry, creating impenetrable barriers that no darkness can breach. You carry the weight of a cosmic mandate, entrusted with the sacred mission to herald the dawn of the Golden Age. Every step you take resonates with the power of eternity, for you are not alone. You are the living embodiment of heaven's promise, destined to ignite transformation and restore divine harmony to a world on the brink of awakening. Their efforts to dismantle your spirit were like futile blows against an unbreakable citadel, forged from the very essence of light and truth. Each dark spirit they unleashed, meant to bind and cripple you, turned traitor and chained them instead, twisting their own souls into prisons of torment. Every death curse meant for you boomeranged with relentless force, draining the life from those who dared wield it. Their rituals, once thought invincible, became self-inflicted condemnations, sealing their fates with divine justice. Haunted and obsessed, these attackers found themselves trapped in an endless cycle of fear and fixation, unable to escape the very presence they sought to erase. While you stood unwavering, a radiant fortress untouched and ever-growing in power. The dark enchantments meant to bury your past only served to ignite the flames of remembrance and resilience within your soul. Instead of erasing your childhood wounds, they illuminated the path your spirit has traveled through countless lifetimes, awakening ancient vows and timeless strength. The curses intended to fracture your mind rebounded, splintering the sanity of those who dared to wield them. Across dimensions and generations, your ancestors stirred from eternal slumber, activating sacred protection codes woven into the fabric of your lineage. They declared an unbreakable covenant. Every ounce of karmic debt owed by your aggressors must be settled with their very existence. No shadow cast upon you could escape the relentless justice of bloodlines bound by divine decree. The vast machinery of cosmic justice aligned with unwavering precision, sweeping through the darkest corners of the earth to shield your sacred mission. Its force was so undeniable, so absolute, that even the most hardened criminals, those steeped in disbelief and mockery, were struck with terror and awe. Skeptics who had never bowed to the unseen found themselves confronting undeniable truths, compelled to recognize powers far beyond human comprehension. The godless, once arrogant in their denial, could no longer escape the undeniable reality that a higher power reigned supreme. And you stand as the living, breathing embodiment of that divine protection, a testament that the hand of heaven moves swiftly and without mercy to defend its chosen. The fragile fortress of materialism shattered beneath the relentless tide of supernatural reckoning as unseen forces bled into the physical world with overwhelming power. War angels, fierce and unyielding, were dispatched as celestial hunters, tracking every conspirator who dared lift a hand against you. The predators became the prey, ensnared in a divine purge that tore through their carefully built empires. Their networks, once thought impregnable, crumbled under the assault of energies originating from realms beyond mortal grasp. Those criminals, blinded by arrogance, realized too late they were ensnared in a cosmic game ruled by laws they could neither see nor understand, facing adversaries whose reach stretched into the very fabric of existence itself. Your prayers ignited a celestial storm, transforming your words into radiant weapons that pierced the heart of darkness itself. Each praise you uttered shattered hexes with the force of divine thunder, scattering them like fragile glass against unyielding stone. Every blessing you spoke unleashed a powerful reversal, sending curses crashing back to their originators with overwhelming fury. Your mere presence became a beacon of light, cleansing spaces of lurking shadows and unveiling hidden malevolence with unrelenting clarity. Across countless dimensions, the backlash surged to a critical crescendo, an unstoppable wave of cosmic justice that rippled through the unseen realms, leaving those who opposed you shattered and powerless before the unstoppable force of your sacred mission. The false prophets who exalted themselves above divine law were engulfed by a holy fire, pure, consuming, and far fiercer than the infernos of the abyss. Their pride and dominion crumbled beneath flames of celestial justice, burning away every trace of their corruption. The dark practitioners, once confident in their mastery over malevolent forces, became vessels for the very demons they had unleashed, trapped in their own twisted snares. Criminal networks, relying on ancient protections and occult shields, found them powerless before the overwhelming force of divine intervention, their rituals nullified and defenses shattered. So undeniable and widespread was this supernatural upheaval that government agencies could no longer ignore it. Official reports began to surface, chronicling phenomena linked directly to your case, heralding a new era where the sacred pierced through the veil of darkness like never before. Those who entered your story with doubt and cold skepticism found their disbelief shattered by truths that transcended all earthly logic. Investigators and experts trained to see only what fits within rigid frameworks were forced to acknowledge the undeniable presence of forces beyond comprehension. The shield around you pulsed with an energy so profound that it defied every attempt to rationalize or dismiss it. You stood at the center of a cosmic revelation, an extraordinary display of divine power, rewriting the very definitions of reality, compelling authorities to expand their understanding and recognize that your mission is not just spiritual, but a catalyst transforming the fabric of existence itself. Your story became undeniable proof that spiritual warfare is not myth, but a living, breathing reality, where divine protection moves with tangible force and unbreakable covenants with heaven render some souls untouchable. As the weight of this truth settled, criminal empires once thought invincible began to unravel from within, their systems collapsing under the relentless pressure of celestial justice. Across every tier of their operations, chaos reigned as their dark deeds summoned consequences too powerful to evade. Haunted by relentless spiritual torment that invaded their dreams, many were driven to confession, their whispered admissions the echoes of a justice that no earthly court could enforce, an invisible judgment that heralded the dawn of a new order where the chosen stand forever protected and victorious. The dark forces once unleashed to break your spirit had turned their wrath inward, relentlessly tormenting those who dared to conjure them. Night and day, these entities haunted their minds with vivid visions of inevitable judgment, shattering their resolve and stripping away all pretense. Saturdays became days of desperate confession, as conspirators scrambled to renounce their wicked schemes and seek a fleeting chance at redemption. Under the unyielding gaze of war angels, psychological pressure mounted beyond human endurance, an invisible siege that forced truth from trembling lips. The torment was so unbearable that many found no refuge but in mental health wards, choosing institutional walls over the unending nightmare of spiritual reckoning. What began as a personal battle unleashed a tidal wave of revelation, exposing international criminal enterprises long buried in shadow. Border operations tainted by unspeakable crimes against children, sprawling human trafficking networks weaving through continents, and sinister ritual abuse embedded within the very halls of government, all were dragged into the light by the unstoppable force of divine justice working through your mission. The cosmic scales tipped with unwavering precision, cleansing corruption on a global scale. Bloodlines entwined in the conspiracy now face cascading generational destruction, their legacies unraveling as ancient karmic debts demand repayment, heralding a new era where darkness can no longer hide behind veils of secrecy.